story from the street. And in addition, the proposed private drive would maintain the feel of a street with landscaping and sidewalks and an access easement to provide the access that would be required. And during the public hearing with Planning Commission on March 9th, Planning Commission recommended approval 5-0. There was one person that spoke in favor of the item and no one spoke in opposition. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions? Okay, I'm going to try to talk. I don't have any questions, but I want to say that I'm very, very excited about this. And I actually spoke to Josh with Red Dog today, and he couldn't be here, but I feel like you said that the changes still stay with the character of what we intend for New Orleans Square. And I'm just excited we have somebody who is really ready to invest in this area, because it's a hard time right now with interest rates, and for someone to do that and to make it profitable. And so I definitely want to make a motion to approve.
Thank you. Second?
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. Motion passes.
Mayor, if I can, before we move off this item, and I've spoken to Jill and spoke to Jennifer, is I do think at some point in the next couple of months, we need to have a discussion about New Orleans Square and what options are out there for the city to look to help incentivize the private sector. When we think about New Orleans Square, we think about the existing structures. However, we forget there are opportunities in all the parking lots like we saw here tonight, and there is land in at least 3 areas in the 3 of the 4 quadrants that there is potential. And if we continue to think big and look about what we could do to create more density and also to stimulate private investment with what tools we have, I think it's something we really need to consider, because I've met with Josh a couple of times with this, just like the vice mayor has, and I know Jennifer has. And to make this type of investment isn't going to happen without the city support, and especially with interest rates. There's other land that other individuals have that there could be potential development. And these are small developments that are actually going to drive more people to the area, which will continue to justify the investment we're making in New Orleans Square. And so I just like to have that conversation with us sometime in the next couple of months, probably during the budget session or so.
Absolutely.
Well, as I said a while ago, we definitely talked about it being a unique area, and that was the whole purpose in working the public-private. So I think it would certainly be called for to have that meeting.
Well, and we're seeing people continuously invest in that area. Dr. Sudduth is here in the audience, and he just opened up his new clinic right here in New Orleans Square. So thank you for investing in New Orleans Square, sir. So we have a motion and a second. Roll call. Motion passes. Item 10 is preview ordinances. 10A, consideration, discussion, and possible preview of an ordinance closing a portion of a utility easement from Bluebell Creameries. Jill.
Thank you. The item before you tonight is looking to close a utility easement that is on the Bluebell site, and it's for a water line that's currently installed on the site. And the preview tonight does include an ordinance, of course, but the ordinance has specific language in there. What's a little bit unique on this one is that the utility has not been moved yet. So the language in the ordinance does accommodate for that. So it says that it's not effective until the water line is actually moved and accepted by the city. And so it's actually not effective until that work is done and it's accepted by the construction department within the city. So I just wanted to point that out. It's a little bit unique for this one, but it's to accommodate the potential for growth in that area and on that site, and to open up space where it kind of constricts around the building currently.
Yeah, I drive that street every single day, and those big, I'm not sure what they are, those big round tubes from across the street, Interflex or Intercon or whatever that's right across the street, when they're turning in and out of that area, it's insane. So
Opportunity for improvement.
always. Do you have a motion? Oh, we have a motion
we
in a
did it.
second.
I just didn't talk.
Yes. Roll call. Motion passes. Item 10B, consideration, discussion, and possible preview of an ordinance closing a storm sewer easement. Jill.
Thank you. This item and the next item are very similar. It's just a different area and a different size of utility easement proposed to be closed. But they both have to do with a site that's currently unplatted but is in the platting process for Southern Trails Phase 2. And it's located 1/4 mile north of Florence Street and east of Olive Avenue. And the request is to close 0.49 acre site of storm sewer easement. And so the easement proposed to be closed was dedicated as part of the plat originally, and then the easement was it was recorded at Tulsa County. And so what's being proposed here is basically to close that. The storm sewer has been relocated off that site, and the conditional final plat was also on the agenda this evening under the consent. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Move to preview the ordinance and set it for adoption.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Counselor Udi.
Thought I hit it. Thank you.
Motion passes. Item 10B, consideration, discussion, and possible preview of an ordinance closing a storm sewer easement.
Thank you. This is the same information really. It's just this site is 0.34 acre storm sewer easement. So it's a different part of the property, but a part of the same plat of a village at Southern Trails Phase 2.
Questions? We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Counselor Parks.
Yes.
Motion passes. All right, 11A, ordinances, consideration, discussion, and possible adoption of ordinance number 3778. Jill.
Thank you. This item is related to, we had the preview ordinance at the last meeting, but it's for short-term rental update. And so this section is for the changing of the zoning ordinance to accommodate changing the commercial use section, the table of allowed uses, additional standards for specific accessory uses, the off-street parking schedule, and definitions that are in the zoning ordinance related to short-term rentals. And just to summarize from the last meeting is the major change that's coming out of this ordinance is that more of the short-term rentals are allowed by right, but with the companion item on this agenda, the licensing standards have really increased, and it's been very specific on looking for things that we've found out through our past processes that are needed, such as screening plans, having an agent that could be on site quickly. So this item before you is the zoning ordinance amendment, and then the next item would cover the code of ordinances. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions?
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. Item 11B, consideration, discussion, and possible adoption of ordinance number 3779. Jill.
Thank you. This amendment is to the Code of Ordinances, Article 16, Chapter 7, and it proposes new regulations for the licensing standards for short-term rentals. And one item I wanted to point out that's also in the staff report, it was previewed at the last city council meeting. There was one minor update to section 7-417F that was made since the preview ordinance. And the previous version referenced building codes instead of property maintenance codes as far as when code enforcement would go out to do the yearly inspection. It needed to be revised to reflect the current code that would be reviewed. And I've discussed that in depth with Joe Williford, our chief building inspector. And this code, the property maintenance code, does include the inside of the building, making sure that it meets all the trades. There's not any hazards inside the building or outside the building. So it really covers those existing structures where the building code covers more of new construction. So this is the more reflective and the accurate representation.
Any questions?
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. Motion passes. 11C, consideration, discussion, and possible adoption of ordinance number 3781. Thank you. Trevor / Danny.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Vice Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the council, Mr. Spurgeon. You have before you tonight ordinance 3781. This was previewed at our last city council meeting. What this is related to is, as you know, our police department has created a mounted horse patrol. And we wanted to make sure that if there's anything that occurs as a result of mistreatment of that animal, assault and battery, things of that nature, we include that in the code. Same thing as we do with our police dogs. So you have that ordinance before you. There have been no changes since the last time we've previewed it. Happy to answer any questions.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. Fanny, you're up for the next one too.
Oh, yes, this is the emergency clause, please. Thank you.
Do you want to move for emergency clause?
When it comes up.
There we go.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. All right. Remarks from governing body members? Nothing?
I'll say something real quick. We have an election today. It just ended. And so if I'm not back in 2 weeks, it's been great. It's been a great 4 years. And if I am, I'll just keep asking questions the same as I have for the last 4 years. So, but seriously, it's been, I hate campaigning. Well, no, I love campaigning. Actually, I hate the election process, but I love campaigning. It's my favorite thing. But I've enjoyed every minute of being a city councilor, and even the bad stuff. I'm proud to have been here and to have been able to represent the citizens of the city. So thanks.
Well, and I'd echo that, except I really hate campaigning. I'll just be right up front. And if I'm not here next week or 2 weeks, well, it's been great working with you for all these years.
Your
But
whole life.
I enjoy it, yeah, my whole life. I really enjoy being on a city council. But I'm just making a comment. If I do win, I'm not running next time, as I said last time. I'm not going to do it. But anyway, it's great. And I always said, as a lot of other people say, this is the government that affects the people the most. And to start with, I didn't see a great big turnout today, so I don't know what the turnout was like. But anyway,
Yeah.
I tell people I'd like them to vote for me, but more importantly, I like them to vote and get out. So
Indeed.
I'm having fun. No, as Paul said, in all things, in whatever circumstance you find yourself in, be content. So I'm content with whatever happens, and I'm grateful for the 8 years I've had. Look forward to more, and really, whether I'm on the council or not, I'll still be serving Broken Arrow, so it doesn't matter.
Johnny?
I might say too that we spent last week, part of it in Washington DC, and we did take your all's youth city council, 7 of them with us, and I'll have to say they were one of the best and really the hardest working youth city council that we've ever had. I really felt great about it. They really enjoyed going to the archives, and then I told them when they went to Arlington Cemetery that at the archives they saw the paperwork that helped set up our country, and at Arlington Cemetery and the other places around for veterans, they saw the price that it costs to keep our freedom. And they did a great job. So we, the council, enjoyed them being there. So it was a trip well worth it. I hated to miss the campaign, but it was a great trip. And I thank you for sending them with us.
Well, I'll tell you, that our youth city council being able to go to Arlington Cemetery with you is priceless, Johnny. The knowledge that you have of Arlington and your time there is second to none. So
I appreciate that. But it was a good group.
yeah, they were really good. So. All right, city manager.
I have none, ma'am.
Okay,
Wow.
I know. We do have an executive session.
Make a motion to take a brief recess to enter Bama and Beta.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Ford,
Yes.
Duty,
Yes.
Parks,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Wimpy.
Yes. Call the Broken Arrow Municipal Authority meeting to order. Roll call.
Ford,
Here.
Duty,
Here.
Parks,
Here.
Gillespie,
Here,
Wimpy.
Here. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. Consent agenda passes. There are no public hearings, appeals, presentations, awards, or recognitions. Item 6 is general authority business. 6A, consideration, discussion, and possible award of the lowest bid to Crossland Heavy Contractors for their Lynn Lane wastewater treatment plant. Chuck Walks.
Good evening, Chair, Vice Chair, trustees, Mr. Spurgeon, Charles Vokes, Utilities Director. This project consists of the removal of the existing belt filter press equipment and chemical mixing system at the Lynn Lane wastewater treatment plant and the installation of new ones along with some modifications to the existing building. The project was advertised on February 21st and 28th. The bids were opened on March 14th. 2 bids were received. The lowest responsible bidder was Crossland Heavy Contractors with a bid of $2,086,000. So I will answer any questions if you have any.
Are there any questions?
This is a good one to be doing.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. Motion passes. Item 6B, acknowledgement of submittal of the Broken Arrow Authority's historical water demand analysis report for the years 1998 through 2022. Kenny Schwab.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, trustees, Mr. Spurgeon. About 8 years ago, when you hired Mr. Spurgeon, the level of commitment to communication and transparency went through the roof. One of the items when I came on board in this position as Assistant City Manager, he asked me to increase the transparency and communication to the governing body of BAMA. For those that have been a part of BAMA, we went through, we approved items, but we really didn't have a lot of reporting. This is a multi-million-dollar utilities with water, sewer, solid waste, and recycling. So we started putting reports in front of you. Monthly water report, monthly wastewater report, a solid waste and recycling monthly report. At the last authority meeting, we had the RMUA, Hakey Creek wastewater report, which actually is a quarterly report with Tulsa, Bigsby, Owasso, and Jinx a part of that. So that was presented. When we bring a report to you, the first thing that we do is we present it, put the background, the narrative behind it, and then moving forward, we just put it under consent, allowing you the opportunity to pull it off. Well, tonight, I'm actually going to do my favorite report. Several years ago, we had a water plant manager named Jimmy Helms who took the data. At a plant, you're required statutorily to keep your records for a period of 10 years at the plant. He started compiling some of this information to allow us to look back in time and make some prediction, and it also thirdly creates a record. So through his efforts, and then I took it over from him, we actually have every month usage demand on our water system for the last 300 months, 25 years.
Wow.
So as you read across, if you can, congratulations. If you read across, we've got January through December across that very top, and then it's every month, the total usage, whether we took from Tulsa or our plant. That's the demand on the system. The far kind of the fourth from the right is a total. That's your annual usage, and that's in billions. So when you read across, it's actually billions. Then the last 3 columns actually mean a lot to the water plant manager, the system manager, and the engineering staff. When you are operating a water system, you want to know your average day, your annual average day. How much water are you going through your system every day, annually? And you also want to know your peak, your max day. Then that last column is a peaking factor. I kind of want to know the difference. So you have 300 data points along with the population, which will also let us know how much we're using per capita. But I just want to point out a few things. The highlighted one in red up in the data that we're using on the monthly. Anytime we hit red in the month, we've used over 600 million gallons that month. We have done it 6 times in our history. Our largest month ever was 722.2, and that was July of 2012. You can thank Russell Gale. He was an interim, and he and I had no clue what we were doing, but we were using water.
Yes.
So you can see July is the highest, but look what happened this year. The very bottom line in 2022, 681.7 million gallons in July. That's the 3rd highest in history. Go over to the far right, kind of the 4th column, the total, 4.74, I'm just going to round, 4.74 billion gallons on our system this year. That is an all-time high. 2022 was the highest record that we have on our water system. With this data in front of us, we immediately know what our past was. We can predict where we're going with our future. It helps us make better decisions, more timely decisions. The last thing I wanted to point out was our annual average day this past year was 12.9 million gallons a day. We are quickly approaching that 13 million gallon a day mark. So the information is just put for you for acknowledgement. I typically put it together on an annual basis in March or April. Moving forward, it'll just be under consent. But again, it's just a record and more information for you. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
For the peace of mind of our residents, how many gallons per day can we handle at the maximum?
At the plant, excellent. At the plant, we can produce 30 million gallons a day, and we are tied into Tulsa in 2 critical locations with a 24-inch and a 30-inch. So we can probably, with Tulsa in our plant, probably bring in about 33 million a day.
So we have capacity.
We have capacity, sir.
What is the peaking factor? What does that mean?
Peaking factor basically means what is your max day for that year divided by your average. And you can actually see our peaking factor, the highest we've ever had was about 2.3. So on an average day, we're using 12 to 13. And then our max day is almost 27. So 27 divided by 12, 13. That shows you how much water we peak that year. That's what we're looking for.
You have to size your plant to be able to accommodate the highest usage. So that's why it's interesting. What was the most we've ever used, Kenny?
Well, yeah, that's probably a better way of saying it than what I did. So thank you. The most we have 7 times in our history used over 26 million gallons in one day. Back to 2012 and Russell Gale and I, we had about 4 or 5 of them in a row. The peak is 26.9. So back to your question, Trustee Udi, plant can produce 30. The peak that we've ever had was 20, call it 27. Got a little bit more than 10% capacity, and we have Tulsa tied in now.
But another thing that this shows us is that it's probably never too early to start looking at expanding our processing capabilities.
We are looking at a secondary source, supplemental source, which we will come back at a later date. We are looking at the ties and connectivity. Broken Arrow today, the term I use within my staff, we are so much more mature. We're more mature as an organization. We're more mature as an authority. We're more mature as operators. And we've created great working relationships with our partners and at the state level. That was something that Mr. Spurgeon commissioned us to do and get busy with it.
My biggest concern is that we only have one water source, and I'm talking to the choir here, so to speak, not to be trite. So I do think that this year we have to make some decisions, especially the authority, on how we plan for a second source. That's something we're talking about. The report that we have a short-term plan, as I mentioned, and we have a long-term plan, and so we'll be talking about those because we need to get those plans in place. Because we have to have that redundancy, and then that's going to help us with the quality of our water. And I know Lou and her team under Chuck, they've been doing an amazing job of operating the plant.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I'll move to accept.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call. Thank you, Kenny.
Oh, thank you. I'm not going anywhere.
We stay right there. Item 11, or where are we at? 6C. Come on, another thing. Consideration, discussion, and possible approval of the Lynn Lane wastewater treatment plant's participation in SARS CoV-2 sewage surveillance program. Kenny.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, trustees, Mr. Spurgeon, Kenneth Schwab, Assistant City Manager of Operations. So the item before you is kind of one of those, it kind of ties to the one we just talked about. Information, record, data collection, and ability to predict and make better decisions. This one ties to the health area. So back to what I was saying about Mr. Spurgeon wanting us to be more mature and tie in and create partnerships. At the City of Broken Arrow, we've done that. We have great working relationships with our surrounding communities at the state level. And about a couple of years ago, we reached out to our universities. We have a working relationship with the University of Oklahoma, still a working one with Oklahoma State University. But one of the professors at the University of Oklahoma, Dr. Jason Vogel, he's a part of the Civil Engineering and Environmental Science Department, reached out to me about a month ago and started talking about this SARS-CoV-2 wastewater surveillance program that University of Oklahoma has a contract with DEQ, Department of Environmental Quality, and what they're doing, and we're actually participating at RMUA, and I'll get to that in a second, but what they're doing is they're actually collecting samples at certain wastewater treatment facilities and running chemical tests on it to determine kind of your concentration in that wastewater of this virus that we're talking about. And the whole point of doing that is to kind of get an idea of, is it increasing in that treatment, that wastewater shed, that sewer shed? Is it increasing or is it decreasing? And the sole purpose is to determine if it's increasing, do they need to reach out to the health department? Do they need to reach out to the medical professions, i.e. in that wastewater shed? In this case, it would be the Broken Arrow Fire Department as the emergency response on the medical side. Do they need to give them an idea of, we're seeing an increase? So what they do is they go out and collect the samples once a week, if I understand correctly. The University of Oklahoma collects them, they run their own test on it, and then they just kind of monitor, much like that water report, on that concentration. And then if there is anything, they will notify the health department and the state to let them do whatever they need to do. It is no mandate. There's nothing tied to that. It's simply, we're seeing an increase. You may be prepared or nothing. Right now, it's a 1-year contract, as I understand it, and they are talking about potentially extending it to 3. So the University of Oklahoma has done it with Oklahoma City, a metropolitan area, mainly the city of Oklahoma City, and the city of Tulsa. With Tulsa Metropolitan Utility Authority, that's a north side wastewater treatment plant up close to Owasso, south side right there off I-44 and the Arkansas River, and our Hakey Creek plant. We've been participating for a while. No cost to us. There is no enforcement measures that can even be done because it'd have to come from the federal. It has nothing to do with that. It's solely just to determine, do we need to notify any health professionals? So they asked us simply because of our side here with Wagner County. They've got kind of the Tulsa County side covered. So it's solely up to the governing body here, the authority, if they want to participate or not. There is no push either way. So if I can, answer your questions, I'd be happy to do so.
Do they test for any other sicknesses?
I just noticed that
COVID's not the only sickness that exists in our life.
Yes, and I apologize for that, interrupting you. I just noticed that they have now just got the approval to test for other pathogens and bacteria, but they didn't tell me what they were yet. I can find out. But originally when it started, they were only testing for the one.
And they started that during at the highlight of the COVID. In fact, out of Oklahoma City, they could actually tell what area of town there was going to be a future outbreak by the bacteria that came down. And they said then that they would be able to use it to test for other type of bacteria or germs. So they was just checking the wastewater to see if there's a bacteria in it, if it's an increase, decrease on different things. So they've used it ever since it started with COVID.
Yeah, I think it's been going a couple of years, as you
I'm not
said,
sure how I
Oklahoma
feel
City
about
and
it.
Tulsa. And Right now, it's really collecting that data and then trying to be predictive with it. So if I understand it correctly, it is a 1-year contract, but it has the potential to extend to 3. I will, we can, if you choose to opt in, we can opt out anytime.
And what do
Next
they
month.
do with the data? Well, I mean,
Yeah,
what's
what's-
going to happen with what they have? Like, if they find out there is bacteria or whatever, like, they're not going to like come in and say, we're going to shut down.
No,
you know.
they have no authority to do that. No,
Well,
ma'am.
what they will do is they'll put it in writing on a website someplace.
It does go to a
And-
website.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I mean, I'm going to vote no on this,
Okay.
but, because, I mean, back in 2020, the Oklahoma State Department of Health was putting out numbers that were incorrect. And when they finally admitted they were incorrect, they didn't admit that. They just erased that page off the website. And we know that that's what they did because I'm the one that knew the numbers were incorrect. And they literally just deleted the page off their website.
That was all the back and forth with the state legislature.
Yeah, that's what all that was.
Mhm.
And so I don't trust that they aren't going to like villainize, like if some city has more like flu, you know, in their sewage than some other city, that stay away from that city. I don't like it. I'm going to vote no.
Very fair. And I actually, if I recall correctly, a lot of the questions that the state was getting at that time came from Broken Arrow through our governing body. And we were reaching out to them, asking them, what does this data mean? What does this point mean? And then the next thing you know, it
Well,
was,
their formula was
clean.
wrong. And then when they finally realized that the formula was wrong,
went away.
that went away. It disappeared. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I'll make a motion to, what is the, not to, to
No,
deny this. Is that the right word? I can't think.
you just make a motion not to participate if that's
Yes,
what you want to do.
that's what my motion would be, to not participate.
Okay.
That's not what's up here, so. I'll make a motion to deny. So,
I'm joining you on that one. So we have a motion and a second to deny. Roll call, sorry. So it's denied.
That's denied. All right, thank you very much.
thank you.
All right, any remarks from the governing body members? City manager?
No, ma'am.
We have no executive session.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. Call the Broken Arrow Economic Development Authority to order. Roll call.
Ford,
Here.
Duty,
Here.
Parks,
Here.
Gillespie,
Here,
Wimpy.
Here. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda?
move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. There are no presentations or general authority business. Any remarks from governing body members? City manager?
No, ma'am.
We have no executive session.
Move to adjourn.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call. All right. Do a motion to take a brief recess.
So moved.
I'll make a motion, the motion's to clear the room for a brief
That was what I-
recess for the
yeah,
executive.
that's-
Rudy made the motion.
And then a second by Vice Mayor.
Ford,
Yes.
Duty,
Yes.
Parks,
Yes.
Gillespie,
Yes.
Wimpy.
Yes.
To say to clear the room. That's what I just wasn't sure. That's why I thought.
It's a motion to take a brief recess.